All right, so we're in here. I'm going to let the video upload right quick. All right, so that's a lot of country is aware that Jordan Neely, a street performer and Michael Jackson impersonator, was killed on the subway within a week ago in New York City. And this is Trump and the GE, Jordan Neely. So I initially saw pictures of him being choked out. I wasn't quite sure what it was about, whether he was murdered, whether the person acted in self-defense, or what have you. You just don't know about these things. I've lived in New York for a while. I first came to New York on a school trip from Virginia as a freshman in high school. And you see some of the crazy stuff you just don't see other places. You see people performing in the street. You see people performing in Times Square. You see people performing on the subway. It's what people expect. Tourists love it. You just don't see that other places. Sometimes you give them money if you have it. There's a guy who plays the guitar in Times Square. A guy's about 6'5", 250 pounds. No fat on him anywhere. Plays in his underwear and cowboy boots. A cowboy hat. That's all he has on. You just don't see that other place. And the guy's a staple in Times Square. And sometimes you see homeless people on the subway. Sometimes you give them money if you have it. Sometimes they seem like they're a little more aggressive and louder than others, but you don't make eye contact with them. They don't bother you. I've never had an episode with anybody on the subway, ever. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but you just don't know if this was an act of self-defense or this guy just wanted to kill somebody. I'm learning now that people are saying that he snuck up on behind Jordan Neely and choked him from behind. And the picture and some of the videos show him with a rear naked chokehold with his legs wrapped around Jordan Neely, constricting his movement and his breathing. You can't tell me that guy didn't feel Jordan Neely, body becoming lifeless before he killed him. You can't tell me that guy didn't know if you choke somebody, around their neck like that for about 10, 15 minutes, that he didn't expect that guy to die. So, here's a video of Jordan Neely performing on the subway. I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay, the video looks like it's from years ago when Jordan Neely was a lot younger and a lot skinnier. But this is a write-up from Curb.com about the incident. It says, in the wake of Neely's murder on May 1st, the community of Michael Jackson impersonators and fans who called themselves a family is mourning the loss of one of their own. The person they saw referred to in the press as an aggressive homeless man with an arrest record was a talented friend and fellow performer. Brenna Crowley, who knew Neely, wrote on Facebook that it had been years since she'd seen him. Quote, but I was always in awe seeing him dance when I did, unquote. He had something special. Also on Facebook, Harper recounted first meeting a kind-hearted, sweet Neely in 2009 as a wonderkind teenager performing as Jackson in Times Square. He was just 16 and didn't even have a costume yet, but he was struck by his genuine interactions with the crowd and his obvious love for performing. The tourists adored him. He became known, Harper said. I love watching it. But anyway, so I come to find out that this guy's well known among politicians. AOC mentioned him specifically. A lot of people in New York have mentioned him. That he's a staple in New York and on the subway as performing, doing his Michael Jackson impression. Apparently he started when he was a teenager around 2009. And that's a lot of demarcation. Because that's around the time of the financial crisis when the government's printing money and giving it to their donors or somebody they want to sleep with and calling it economics. So during the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, the government and the Federal Reserve was printing money and giving it to Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, a bunch of investment banks, commercial banks, hedge fund managers, private equity firms, and real estate developers for their benefit under the guise of spurring the economy. Basically picking the winners at the expense of everybody else. gave it to printed tens of trillions of dollars to give it to everybody but black folks and poor people, and give it to everybody but people who look like Jordan Neely. So the government picked the winners, and I wrote a book about it called Shock Exchange. Inner city kids from Brooklyn predicted the Great Recession and the pain ahead. And now it's happening just like I predicted. We're back to another recession, but people clicked up with the government, the Federal Reserve. They're doing pretty well. They're billionaires right now. And so I think this death of Jordan Neely is going to raise a lot of issues about inequality, the value of a life, our regular people's lives as valuable as a hedge fund manager's life. The question, apparently the government doesn't feel that way, and the Federal Reserve doesn't feel that way. They're constantly picking the winners and printing money and giving it to hedge fund managers and private equity firms and investment bankers who basically add no value to society. None. They're a bunch of parasites who just take, and never give anything back. And they're a bunch of predators. These investment bankers, hedge fund managers, private equity firms, they are a bunch of predators. And so that's most of New York. My experience with New York is that they're predators. It's not going to be a fair fight with anybody in New York. If somebody gets aggressive with you in New York, they usually know something you don't. They have a weapon when they know you don't, or they have 5 or 6 other guys with them. It's going to be 6, 7, 8 people against one. And when I mean by predator, that you don't see lions fighting other lions in the jungle. You don't see lions fighting other animals as big and strong as it is, because it may get hurt and it can't go to the hospital. They don't hospital in the jungle. So a lion get kicked in the mouth by a zebra once, broke his jaw. Lion's jaw was hanging down. Probably died. He couldn't eat for a month. He couldn't go to the hospital, get his jaw wired shut. Couldn't drink soup, so how's he going to survive? And that fight with the guy who choked out Jordan Neely, it didn't look like a fair fight. I understand that the guy was ex-Marine. He walked up behind Jordan Neely, snuck up on him from behind and choked him from behind, like a predator. We'll still see what the fact pattern is, whether it was in self-defense or whether it was ruled a homicide. But we're still finding out. The other thing is that they're going to be raising themes about inequality as a Federal Reserve and the government spike asset prices, spike stock price values for stocks and houses to the point where nobody can afford a house. You can have more homelessness in the United States, in these urban areas like New York, San Francisco. Rent going up through the roof and never goes down because the people clicked up with the government, bought up all the property and raised the prices to the point where nobody can afford it. And they can't lose money because they always, the government's going to bail them out. That's where we are. So it comes down to, if the government's picking the winners, the government picked a bunch of investment bankers and real estate developers over the rest of the country. Is Jordan Neely's life as worth as much as an investment banker? If he had a 3-piece suit on with a name tag said I work for a hedge fund, or I run I'm a hedge fund manager, would this guy have choked Jordan Neely out? Probably not. I don't personally think Jordan Neely's life is worth any less than anybody else's, but apparently the government does, and the Federal Reserve does. It's probably keep printing money and give it to everybody but Jordan Neely. Again, the government's picking a winner, so it's going to raise a lot of issues about inequality. Why is a country like this? Why is there so much inequality? Why is there so many people who live well with no talent, who just show up and fit in and look a certain way and fit the part? So now we're in this dystopian reality where the people who have resources and people who don't. The people who clicked up with the Federal Reserve and people who aren't. The people who the Federal Reserve prints trillions of dollars and give money to, and people that they don't. That's it. People are going to start asking questions, why is the U.S. the way it is? And they're going to start questioning these policies that I was questioning years ago. So now we're here. And, this incident with Jordan Neely is right in the middle of it. People are protesting in New York, and they should be. And then I envision more protests as time goes on. So why is this wrong-headed policy from the government benefiting a small segment of society at the expense of 99% of everybody else? So that's Trump Energy, Jordan Neely. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you.